happy
Thanks
Pride.
for wearing pink.
Oh, of course. I wanted to look like a giant glass of rosé just for you.
A happy Pride to you and to all.
Yes, and thank you always for supporting the community. It means the world.
To me as well. Cheers.
Cheers. You know, thinking about just my relationship with you as a gay man, like I fell in love with you so early on, and I think you have such a genuine and special connection with the LGBTQ community. I would love for you to kind of just, how would you describe
Expand upon
yeah,
that?
because you really are the icon.
It's hard for me to expand on it actually. You know, I've said the same thing for so many years. It just felt like a very organic acceptance of each other. You know? Obviously I've worked with a lot of the community throughout my entire career, which has been since a young person, and my sister's career. You know, we I don't know, I guess it was very normal to us, and I love the fact that my shows and my kind of my work is inclusive and always has been. So it's something I'm very proud of, but it's also something that's very natural. But I do appreciate that you know, all of our voices help.
And I think, you know, we, as we're sitting here in Pride Month, it's so important. I'm glad we're talking about queer joy. And I think so many of my friends that love you, like myself, I think you inspire joy and like happiness and hope. I mean, I was talking to Cher, sorry, name drop.
Well, hang on. Clang.
And
clanger.
I know, right? And she
Okay,
said,
we can stop the interview there because that's the peak. That's amazing.
she told me that this crazy story of when her mom brought a gay best friend home and it was dancing in her living room, and she's like, that was my first experience with someone of the community, and that's from that moment I fell in love with everyone. Was there someone early on that you met?
No, I can't think of. There was no specific moment,
Yeah.
but you know, a lot of time, you know, in hair and makeup in the early days, I was out of school. I was out of. I was in a different environment. Yeah, and I have people in my family who are in the community, and you know, and in the greater family, of course.
Yes.
So no, there's not. I don't have a story as good as Cher's.
Well, you know, I mean,
No, okay, I've got one story
I knew it.
that isn't. Okay, it was kind of an aha moment. I think it was 1990,
Okay.
around 1990, and I was in Sydney, and there's a very famous gay bar on Oxford Street in Sydney, and they were doing a Kylie night this night, which I'd never heard of and never been to. And I remember being in the car with whoever it was, but I know my manager at the time was in there. I said, we should go. And he said, no, like that's just going to be too much organisation, or we didn't have time or whatever. But in that moment, I thought, oh my God, what is that? And I heard that there were people dressed as me, and it sounded like a good time. So that was the first moment I thought, wow, something's kind of happening. But in my attempts to explain it over the years, I think, yeah, I've just always tried my best. I've tried to be myself. You know, anyone in this industry, there's obstacles, there's challenges, you know, how to be accepted as yourself. And that's just what I try to do with anyone, really.
and I guess, you know, if the queer community is dressing up as you and impersonating you, that must be the ultimate.
But yeah, the irony is I'm always the least Kylie in the room.
And now there's so many new versions that we can do since the 1990, right?
There's plenty to choose from. Yeah, back then there weren't so many. In you know, kind of 1990, I went to another one of my favourite stories. You've probably heard it before, but I went to a Lemonheads concert. Like, that is so far from a Kylie show or a Mardi Gras show. And so I went to this show of theirs, and I was real, like, you know, the kind of the earthy, hippie version of me, which is very much part of me. And I had no makeup, natural curls, and kind of a symphony of beige. And someone said, oh, there's a Kylie night at this skate club. So we popped in. Next thing I was on stage with 4 Kylies, and I was the least Kylie. They were, you know, 110% versions of me, and I was like, it is me. That's funny.
Do you have a favorite Kylie era look or something? Because I have all of, I mean, I could never pick, but is there one where you're like, you know what, that was your fave?
Look, I think the video for Slow in that Balenciaga dress is hard to beat. Directed by Bailey Walsh. It was just beautiful. That's kind of hard to beat.
It's epic.
So that is a favorite. What's yours?
I think I go back and forth. I mean, of course, Can't Get You Out of My Head is like the ultimate.
That's my second. What,
Yeah.
Maybe it's yeah.
Aphrodite,
Between those
though,
two.
that era, I'll never forget, was epic. And cheers to that.
I'll
Let's do
never
another
forget
cheers.
how hard it was wearing all those costumes.
It was worth it, let me tell you. You know, as we continue to celebrate the release of your wine.
It is good, isn't
and
it?
it's just in time for Pride. It's so good.
Yum.
I think there's so much heavy stuff for the community right now. Across the U.S., people's rights are being questioned, repealed. What would you want to say to anyone out there that maybe thinks that LGBTQ people should be treated differently?
Well, there's a blank face. Like, why? Right? I mean, everyone's different. Outside of that community, all different communities, so everyone has to be heard, understood. Might not be easy. I think within acceptance is also acceptance that it might take a minute for other people to understand. You know, changing generations and values and changing times. So we can only just keep working, keep up the noise, find the joy within the noise, and you know, try to be the best version of our true selves. And we're changing all the time, you know, so it's complex. It really is complex. But I think the community is strong, more than capable, and I am a very proud ally.
Oh, I love that. And I think it's so important that we always say at GLAAD, when it comes to one's journey from the community, a queer journey, there's no rules, there's no timeline.
Listen, we're all making it up as we go along.
And that's okay.
Yeah. And you know, some days it all makes sense, and some days it's a struggle. And that might sound rich coming from me because I don't have the same struggles, but I sympathize, I identify, and I'm here with you, and always have been, and you pretty much adopted me, the community adopted me, and I always say I had no choice in it. It was like, here she is, and I was happy. We were all happy.
Oh, we are so happy. This wine, let's talk about this, is such a success. We finally get it here in the US, just in time for Pride, which is so exciting. 5 million bottles sold, less than 2 years. People are drinking it up, loving it.
Yeah,
How did this all happen? Because you're so good at everything, and now you're a winemaker.
It's not the most riveting story. I always kind of preface it with that you know, I like a really good glass of wine, and the point that I trace it back to, in truth, is recording Golden, the album Golden in Nashville, which was just an incredible time for me. I felt, you know, liberated and inspired, and it was just a very, very special time for me. And it was the high summer, million degrees, like, you know, it feels like it's
Melting.
raining when you go from the hotel to the car. Just the humidity and everything. Trying to make a long story short, the working hours are pretty like business hours in Nashville, which might sound obvious to other people, but I often think about songwriting sessions in the studio. You just keep going and going, and you might finish at 1 a.m. or 2 a.m., but it was very organized, you know, business hours. So it meant lots of dinners al fresco in the heat, drinking rosé. And one night I was holding this glass of rosé, the light was coming through it, and it was just a beautiful time, a beautiful moment. And the words just came from me. I said, I'd love to have my own rosé one day.
And now,
you know, gently investigated that, and now the person and the team that I work with, I met them at the start of 2020, and so it was just a bit of kismet. We kind of found each other and realised we had the same values. We really wanted to put quality in the bottle and make
it's
it fun and
delicious.
make it exciting and make it genuine. So I think that's why it's translated so well.
And I think, thinking of Pride and this city and across the world, everyone is going to be celebrating with Kylie Minogue wine, which I love, and I'm so excited to be here drinking it with you.
Don't blame me for the hangover, okay?
No hangover. No.
I should be a little, a little advisory,
It's the
what would I write? Yeah.
I know there's something with can't get you out of my head there with something. But I've seen the pictures. You've done Pride parades in Sydney, Australia.
I've done a lot.
You've
through
done
the
it
years,
all.
yeah.
What is it like to, just to get out there and to, like, last night, for example, the room was made up of people just like me that were so excited to see you and welcome the wine and see you back on stage.
Yeah.
What's it like just to kind of get to interact and be with people that love you so much?
Well, speaking of last night, that was just, I said on stage, it was a pinch me moment. I'm like, I'm here at the Cafe Carlisle. I get to perform with a grand piano, some vocalists, and that's it, and do different interpretations of the songs. So that's really special. Then you've got shows like the infamous gigs at GAY in London, which I say there's just, why we ever do sound checks and rehearsals is beyond me, because you get to the night and people are going, whistles, they're yelling, you can't hear, it's just, all right, buckle up, it's going to be in for a bumpy ride, bumpy night, what's that saying?
Yeah, bumpy ride.
Bumpy ride? Bumpy night, bumpy ride. So those kind of, it's like the energy is filling every gap of the room, Bowery Room, in Ballroom.
Mm-hmm. I was there.
There was a small number of us, but it felt like could have been, a stadium show. It was just electric. And then for Pride shows, that's. I always feel like I'm just part of that greater conversation and celebration. So always a joy.
You are absolutely the queen.
They're always hot.
Yes.
Like
You've been to Palm Springs
the
too.
hair starts
Yes.
like this.
Yeah.
And, half an hour later, everything's falling off.
I read that you compared early on in your career, like, with our community being kind of challenged, and you had said that it reminded you because you kind of felt like an outsider a little bit in the beginning.
A little bit, yeah. And possibly thinking back to being a young person and being, thrust into, I chose it. This was a career I wanted the path I wanted to take. But yeah, when there was periods where I felt like kind of being really, it felt like I was being attacked for something that was, I'm just trying to get through, and it just didn't make sense to me that there would be some of the meanness around. It just seemed kind of strange to me and unnecessary. And perhaps that was something at the time that the community recognised in me. Just let her grow and develop.
Right.
And that's amongst a lot of success and a lot of goodness, of course. But yeah, I haven't figured it out. Maybe one day I'll figure out exactly how it happened. But I'm also quite happy not knowing. It just, as I say, is organic.
And you know what? You figured out how to make beautiful wine. Let me tell you. One more cheers for that.
Listen, I've got a big day. You're going to get me.
I know, right? Little
Tiddled.
tipsy. This wine is winning, I mentioned, millions of bottles sold. It's won a major award. People, they call it the Oscars of wine. Did you ever think that, you're good at everything. I love it. But did you ever think?
I just reveal something. I'm really bad at a lot of things.
Did you ever think that it would be such a hit? People love it.
No. Actually, I did not. We're only 2 years.
Yeah.
We're just a baby company. We're only 2 years old. It's been a very kind of like a heady launch, but also because we launched through lockdown, there almost was no launch. It was the softest launch of all launches. When we first met, this was just on the cusp of pandemic. And I met with the team, I liked them, we had an idea. We were starting with one rosé, just one, and we'd said, "Oh yeah, we'll have this launch, and we'll do this and this and this." No launch, but we'd already committed to the grapes and to the project, so we had to see it through anyway. So I think it's doing its own job. You know, I'm so proud of the content. So I'm just delivering the message, but the message is in the bottle.
That's like
like
a
that.
hit song, right? The
Yeah.
next, we also quickly before we wrap up, we should talk about disco because I said when you announced it, I was like, this is the only thing that will save 2020. This album coming out, and it was epic. And I love that you've re-released it into different versions. Infinite Disco is, I mean,
I think I love that. I absolutely love it. And I know you're going to ask about a tour, and I'm so sad I have not toured, but of course,
right.
plainly obvious why I
Right,
haven't.
yeah.
But it'll be worth it when we eventually get there.
And look, you got a song called Fine Wine on that album.
Randomly,
And you've
yeah.
made a fine wine.
Yeah, that was, I didn't know about that at the time, but
It all
yeah.
comes together.
Thank you.
Ultimate Pride Kiki party with Kylie Minogue wine rosé. What else do we need? What are the other pieces of it to make the Ultimate Pride party?
We
that
need an amazing DJ, and that's not me. Like, people look to me like, what's the playlist? I'm just like, don't ask me. I don't know. Too much pressure. We need some good sofas because, you know, different lounge options, different levels.
Yeah.
We can't all be at the same level. I
No.
don't think that works.
Little desserts and like some fun things. You know what? I was going to tell you, New York City, Flippers. Have you been there to the roller disco yet?
No.
It's incredible. It's totally your jam because I'm thinking back to you skating. It's epic and it just opened in New York. It's
So, okay, if I was to go there,
yeah.
me roller skating now might be very different to me roller skating when I was 14.
I think you've
And
done
was
it
very
since
limber.
then.
I had better suspension then, I think.
That's the ultimate
So
pride.
in my mind, I'd be like, yes, it's the speed round, it's the backward skating. And in my mind, I feel the breeze through the hair. I'm shooting around those corners. But in actual fact, I might need a practice run before
I'll take you right
before
now.
we
Let's
reveal. I'll be
go.
like clinging onto the rails.
You've really worked really well with some very important queer artists throughout your day. If you know, I mean, I think of Jake Shears because I love him so
Yeah.
much. You've made some amazing
I
hits.
think of him in New York, actually.
Yeah, I mean, how important is it for you to, you know, just continue to work with LGBTQ artists and to just, you know, use what you can to elevate?
Well, I always do. I mean,
Yeah.
there's, you know, hairdresser, makeup artist, producers, performers. I mean, there's no category for them, but certainly, yeah, Jake is probably the first one that comes to mind.
How about you and Lil Nas X? That could be something.
That would be something. Yeah, that would be amazing.
That would be magical. I remember my mom picking me up from high school one day,
Yeah.
and she's like, I brought you Fever, and it had just come out.
She bought it for you?
Yes. And I swear it led to important conversations because I was, you know, coming into
The
myself.
thing is,
yeah.
I hear that a lot, or I read it on socials, or I get letters,
Yeah.
you know, and you know, my heart kind of swells with pride and sometimes sadness that it's taken something other than the people closest to you to allow you to, you know, find yourself and express yourself and be accepted.
Yeah.
And how on earth I've had anything to do with it sometimes mystifies me, but I guess, you know,
You definitely have.
music and voice can be, not singing voice, but someone's, you know,
Yeah.
can be powerful. And I yeah, it means a lot to me whenever I
Oh my gosh.
hear
yeah.
that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Happy
Thanks
Pride.
for wearing pink.
Oh, of course. I wanted to look like a giant glass of rosé just for you.
A happy Pride to you and to all,
Yes, and thank you always for supporting the community. It means the world.
to me as well. Cheers.
Cheers.
Hear the sirens, of course.
Always. New York City.
Everybody looks so pretty. You were at the Bowery Ballroom that night?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Everybody looks so pretty. Ooh, it's giving me those feelings. I just want the best, babe. I just want to get.
The best.
Yeah, I just want to get to. It only had that on. Okay, it made an appearance in the Golden Tour, but that was its moment.
It's so good though.
Yeah.